All right, we're live. We are live. Stephanie, you should just unmute and say hi.
Hi, everybody. Hi, Chia. Hi, Lisa. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, hopefully today you can shine some light on the topic of today, homelessness, tackling homelessness in Sacramento and Elk Grove. That'd be great. I'm pretty sure some of the viewers here have a lot of questions for you, and so I'm excited to have you on the show. Thank you for making time to be on the show. Um, let's do a little bit of housekeeping real quick. If you guys are watching this right now, make sure you guys are liking the video, share it, comment. If you guys have any questions about today's topic or anything at all that you guys want me, Lisa, and Stephanie to address, just put them in the comment below so that way we could address them accordingly. But we do have a lot of stuff we want to share with all you guys. And before we get to those topics, of course, I want to do a market update with all of you guys to share what's been going on in Sacramento County for this past week. So let me just go over the data with you guys and then we can start, shall we? All right, let's see what this week is like. Okay, so just from this past week, more homes are available for sale. It increased like almost 5%. New listings are down 11%. Sold homes are down 35%. Okay, so now remember, when we're talking about a week and a month, the numbers are could be drastic. So I'm gonna go over the monthly as well, so that way you guys know how to compare these numbers too. Okay, so just from today versus a month ago. Okay, new listings are still down. Okay, 28%. Sold homes 37, and for sale homes 25%. Okay, so that's the numbers. This is not looking good, guys. I feel like every time whenever I do a market update like this, it's always bad news because like we want more listings, right? So that way prices could eventually go down or stabilize. And this doesn't look good right here. Whenever it's new listings are low, sold homes are also going to decrease. Let me go over to the average price per square foot. Uh, from last week, it increased 3%. Average price per square foot from a month ago, 4.5%. There you go. Days on the market, how long it takes for a home to sell. From this past week, 12 days on average. 12 days on average. That's so crazy. Man. 11 days on average for this past month. 11 days. That's how fast it takes for a home to sell. Can you believe that? Did you know that, Stephanie? That's how fast a home sells?
I'm not surprised, right? Like,
Yeah, this is so crazy. Oh my gosh. All right, average price and active price. From this past week, oh man, it jumped up a lot. The average active price, 1 mil. Sold price went up 3.3%. Oh man, look, from last month. Active. 42% increase. Sold price 7.2% from last month. Prices are still going up, you guys. I'm getting some of you guys calling me, texting me, saying the crash is happening this year. The crash is happening this year, Chia. More homes are hitting the market, more inventory now. Prices are getting reduced. I'm noticing that. You can't look at the price that it hits the market at. You got to look at the sold price, because you got to take into consideration what some of these sellers are doing when they're putting their homes on the market. They're putting the home on the market and they're putting it at a pretty competitive asking price to seek and pique interest of buyers. Okay, buyers that see a lower price home in the area that should have been 600K, but it's on the market for 580, it's going to trigger more eyeballs. So that's really the tactic to get people's attention. So pay attention more to the sold price and not the active price. Okay, sold price is more important for a lot of reasons. One, appraisals. Appraisals don't care about active price. They care more about sold price, okay? And as you can see here, it's been going up. Just from this past week, 3%. From last month, 7%. All right, let's go to months of inventory worth. We already kind of know where that's at, but I just want to show it to you guys anyways. And 0.8. 0.8. Right now, as we stand towards the middle of May, a little bit over a month, okay? But still not enough. Still not enough inventory. This needs to reach 3.0 months worth of inventory before we could start noticing like a stable market in Sac County, okay? But that is the market update, you guys. I'm going to pass the baton over to our guest speaker, Stephanie.
Thanks, Chia. Thanks everybody for being for watching, and so excited to be here for the very first time. As Chia mentioned, I'm Stephanie Nguyen. I'm an Elk Grove City Council member. I'm jumping in my 6th year as Elk Grove City Council member. I am the first Asian American women to be elected here in the city of Elk Grove. And in 2018, when I won, I received over 65% of the votes, the most amount of votes during that election year. So that tells you a couple of things. One, that is, our city is ready for an Asian woman to be elected and lead our city. But two, our city has grown, and that they are ready to accept a daughter of refugees. My family came here during the fall of Saigon. My parents fled by sea in hopes of just finding an opportunity for them to be able to grow a family, a place where they can feel safe, where they can reach the American dream. So as we're talking about real estate and the American dream, it's always been about owning your own home. And so when my parents came here during the fall of Saigon, they were accepted into Australia. From Australia, we were sponsored to go to Louisiana, and then came here to California, because this is where all the resources and the services are for refugee families. English is a second language for me. My family grew up on every single public assistance program you can think of. And I'm so fortunate now to be able to run an organization here in town in Sacramento County. I got 3 locations, one in South Sacramento, one in Oak Park, and one in the city of Citrus Heights. And we provide resources and services to the community. We're a workforce development, economic development organization, which means everything that we do is around ensuring that our community has resources and services so they can thrive. That can mean anything from learning the English language to getting connected to jobs, to working with small businesses. Many of you on here are probably small business owners. Well, we run something called the OJT program, the On-the-Job Training Program, where if you hire any of the clients that I work with, we can reimburse you 100% up to 980 hours of their time. So any small businesses that are in there that are able to use staffing or in need of staffing, we do the vetting for you as well too, especially now as we're getting out of the pandemic. Folks are getting ready to go back to work again. We do the vetting, and we get them placed into jobs that they can sustain themselves and their family. And so running the organization prepared me to be able to be an elected official in the city of Elk Grove. I was able to use my experience as a nonprofit CEO, but also my experience growing up in a very low-income family household. And what I've learned is that it's about passion. It's about just work and wanting to help the community. Elk Grove is the second largest city in the Sacramento region, and we are doing fantastic. We're considered a safe city. We have great education system. Our businesses continue to thrive. We have 100 parks in the city of Elk Grove that are utilized by families every single day. And more people are choosing to move to Elk Grove and raise their family there. I am now running for state assembly. So if you didn't know, you probably see my signs around the city of Elk Grove and the city of Sacramento. And I want to take my experience and my voice to the Capitol so that we can make changes that can really be positive for our community. There are three areas that I am making a priority for me, and it aligns so well with the work that you all do. And that is ensuring that our communities feel safe. So, law enforcement has completely backed me up, and they agree too that our communities aren't feeling safe anymore. And when people don't feel safe, they don't leave their home, nothing moves, right? Families move to cities where they can feel safe and where they want to start a family and where their kids can feel safe going outside, riding a bike, going to the park, walking to school, or whatnot. And then workforce development and economic development is my second one. And that's because as we get out of this pandemic and we start to open up businesses again and folks go back to work, we want to make sure that our businesses are supported and they have what they need to be able to continue to grow. We saw what the pandemic did to many businesses where they shut down, but many people lost their job at the same time. And so it's about working with folks that have decided after decades of what they were doing that they needed a change in career. And so how do we work with them to get them placed into a new career and give them that pathway to succeed? And then my last priority is homelessness. You all see it everywhere that you go. And it's disheartening, right? And where you may even run your business, where you work, right? You see it, and it's an eyesore. And as realtors, your clients probably ask you what the homelessness situation is like. And if you're taking clients around to see homes, you probably avoid certain street because you know that that's where there's a lot of homelessness that is very visible, right? And so for me, that's a big issue. And what we're also seeing is that once upon a time, the unhoused community would come to you and they ask you for money or for food, and you'd politely say no, and they would turn and walk away. But we're seeing a change in that they've become violent now, right? And they are starting to attack. And so a lot of that is linked with substance abuse and mental health. And so how do we tackle that? We're not going to solve it. There's just no way to solve it, but we should address it. We need to get in front of it now. I serve as the homelessness task force for the city of Elk Grove. And the city of Elk Grove continues to have the lowest number of homelessness all across the region. And I want to make sure that we continue to address it and we continue to find ways to ensure that our unhoused community, have what they need and get them connected to the resources so that they don't have to live out there in the streets and in their tents. So those are my three priorities. I know that there are huge issues for all of you in this industry. Because you are successful when you're able to place somebody in a home where they're going to be happy. And we're starting to see that there are very few areas which you can place people now. But also the fact that, Chia, as you're giving your updates, a lot of people are going to be priced out of. Not very many people can afford $1 million home, and that's the average, is what you said, right? That's yeah. So, once upon a time, and I talk about this all the time, is that once upon a time when you went to high school, you graduated, everybody wanted to move out and get an apartment, right? Went to college, got a job and bought a house. But we're not seeing that happen anymore. We're not seeing that cycle anymore. People are staying in apartments and they're staying in there forever. But there aren't things in place to get them to a point where they can eventually own a home, or they're getting priced out of folks from other cities that are now moving into our city or our region and can afford it. And so for folks like that, I've lived in the city of Elk Grove for 19 years now. And thank goodness I bought my house back then. But, I don't know that I'd be able to afford it now. If you're saying an average house is $1 million, what average family has 2.3 kids, right? So you're looking at a 4-bedroom house. If I get a room, my kids get a room, we need an office, a guest bedroom. It's difficult now. So I want to make sure that we find ways to make it affordable for folks to be able to live. But it's a balance, because we also have to make sure that our communities feel safe. If you have kids, you need to make sure that your kids are safe. And as a parent, that's a huge thing for us. It's a huge
Right.
thing.
So you you're going for state assembly, right?
Yes.
What can you share a little bit as to like what the difference would be between a city councilwoman and a state assembly?
Yeah.
Like what would be the different roles and
Yeah. So state assembly is when you, so I'll make it real easy because it can get a little confusing for folks if you don't
yeah, make
follow.
it easy.
Yeah. So your city council member makes decisions on what happened in your city. So do you have some local control, right, within your city? So certain cities have things like your own police department. So the city of Sacramento has their own police department. City of Elk Grove has their own police department. Then you've got the county, which is by the deputies, the sheriff's department, right?
Mm.
Those are the unincorporated area. As a council member, you get to make decisions on what happens in your own city. But then it jumps to also the state level, right? So the state level can overwrite what happens in the city, but not necessarily, a lot of the local things, the land use, what happens in your city as far as land, you get to make those decisions still. But on a state level, we get to come up with, I'm going to call them rules and laws that would be voted on the state level. So all of California. So I would just be one vote, right? It still goes to a vote, just like the city council. It goes to a vote, and the majority of the vote would get something passed. If the majority didn't vote on it, it wouldn't pass. I'll give you a really easy one to follow. So several years ago, we had an ordinance because at the time people were buying RVs. And in the city of Elk Grove, you can't park your RV in a residential area. Some people, you live in the city of Elk Grove, you probably see some RVs, and that's a code enforcement call. You call code enforcement and they'll get that out of there. But you cannot park your RVs in residential areas. We had, I had a constituent actually in my district, District 4. She had a really nice, beautiful RV that she had parked in her yard, and it was sticking out just like. So neighbors complained about it, and it was impeding into sidewalks, so kids can't really bike through or whatnot. So it came to the city council for a vote, and we could have changed that, right? The city council could have came in and we could have voted to say, okay, we can now have RVs parked in the city of Elk Grove in residential areas. It is a code violation to have a vehicle park for more than 3 days, any standing vehicle park for more than 3 days, right, in the city of Elk Grove.
Even if it was their own property?
Yeah, it's your own property. Yeah. Yep.
Wow.
If you start having cobwebs show up, yeah, code enforcement will come by and give you a ticket. So, but RVs, that's a big vehicle, right? I mean, safety reasons, especially if you're parked somewhere and kids are coming through, they can't see, and so you see accidents happen. And then you've got people who really maintain their RVs and those that really don't, but you can't pick and choose. You can't say 5 years or can be parked here, others. And so folks were saying, RV owners were saying, there's nowhere else to park my RV. I'd have to pay to find a location, and there's nowhere left in the city of Elk Grove. I've got to drive far away to get it. And so we took a vote on it, and we passed it, right? We passed it at the city level, and then it would go to consent. So the next meeting, it goes to consent. So you make a vote, you pass it, then it goes to a consent item to really, really pass it, right? I'm using like easy terms here so everybody can follow. And when it got to consent, there was the word got out that the city council is now going to allow RVs to be parked in your neighborhood. Email, call, show up, and tell them, no, you don't want this. And photos got circulated of old RVs that homelessness were living in it. And so we must have gotten hundreds of folks email us all saying they did not want this and they were not okay with this. And so we pulled it. We pulled it from consent item, and it never passed, right? But as community members, as constituents, as residents that live in the Elk Grove, you have a voice, and you should use it at these city council meetings, right? You should say something. I'll give you another example that if you have kids, you'll really appreciate this. And my kids really did. But several years ago in the city of Elk Grove, you were able to smoke outside of like a Starbucks, Pete's Coffee. You could smoke out there. There would be ashtrays and you can smoke outside, right? So I came to the council and I asked for us to ban that. No more smoking outside. No more smoking outside of outdoor eatery places, right? So like there's a couple of places where you could now sit outside and eat. Well, now just during the pandemic, everybody ate outside, right? But we took it to the council and we voted and we banned outdoor smoking at some food establishments. And so my daughter really, really appreciated that, right? She's 11 now, but at the time she was a little younger, but she understood that. And that came up because, gosh, we were like at a Pete's Coffee one day and, having our drinks outside and somebody showed up and they sat there and they were smoking right next to us. And we tried to move, but the wind blows in every single direction, right? And so no matter where you move, you would still get the smoke. And especially if they have a bunch of friends that were with them. So the smoke travels. So we had to just get up and leave. And so as a parent, I saw that. And so I brought it to the council and, no complaints whatsoever. Nobody in the city of Grove came and complained to us about that. And so, the other thing is the zoo. The zoo may be coming here. I'm sure everybody heard about that. The city of Sacramento, the zoo is in the city of Sacramento, and the zoo needed somewhere else to move to, just because there are areas that they've outgrown it right now, and they were getting ready to maybe lose their certification. So they needed a place where they can grow, and so they came to us. They came to the city of Elk Grove and asked if we would be interested in housing them there. And in order for that to happen, there needed to be an opportunity for an MOU to be discussed. And so that came to us as council to approve for an MOU to be established for us to have a discussion with them. And so our city staff is in discussion with the Zoo Society now. And then that will come to us as council members to be briefed on. And then we'll have the discussion in the public for everybody to see. So we have something called the Brown Act, which means no more than 3 of us can be together in a setting to discuss anything related to city issues, right? Because 3 is all you need for a vote to pass, right? And so it's very seldom that you'll see 3 council members by ourselves having lunch or in a room by ourselves, just because it could be seen as we're talking about something that's going to be related to the city, and we're going to be able to, say, okay, you vote this way, we all vote this way, right? All of our discussions need to be in public for the public to see. We can't have any closed door meetings, and any meetings that we have need to be published so that the public can see what we're going to be discussed. Otherwise, if it's not agendized, we cannot talk about it. So at council meetings, when people come up to us and they start saying, well, I want you to answer this because I want to know why this is here. We can't address it because it wasn't agendized. We can only talk about things that are on the agenda and discuss about it in public for everybody to see and to hear.
Got it.
There's a lot of things on a local level, but then on the state level, there's
a lot.
Yep. Then it's about the entire state follows it, right? The entire state would then it would impact the entire state, not just cities, not just.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. I never knew that, but now I do. Can we talk on homelessness? You mentioned that those are some of your priorities right now for this campaign, and what are some of your plans on tackling homelessness?
Yeah. So we have to figure out how we can address it, right? It's just growing. It's growing in every city. You see the growth of homelessness all around us. And for me, it's about making sure that we have an opportunity to have a place for them to go and to receive services that is needed. Many of the folks that are experiencing homelessness right now have some type of mental illness or substance abuse or drug addiction or whatnot. And I've said this before, but if you have a mental illness or if you're on you're addicted to, substance abuse or drugs or whatnot. And if I came to you and I asked for help, of course you're going to say no. Of course you're going to say you're not going to need it, right? But are you at that point where you can make those sound decisions on your own? I happen to know somebody who became homeless, and they were just like you and I and Lisa. This person had a job, has kids, and fell through with getting talked into, using some type of drug that wasn't something that they should have done, and they got hooked on it. And now, walks the streets of the city of Sacramento, and has kids too. And the family
Oh my
wants to help the
gosh.
person, but they can't, right? By law, they can't do anything. And so at some point, I feel like it's time that we need to take over, and we almost need to be able to work with the family members, so that if there's any family members that says, I want to help my daughter, I know she needs to help. She shouldn't be out there. She just got hooked on it, and she's got kids. We need her back. And I think that's where we need to take over. We need to take over, and we need to be able to say, you need this assistance. We're going to help you. I've talked about how psychiatrists will meet with somebody and interview somebody or work with somebody, and when they find out that person doesn't have the ability to make decisions on their own, they're on a psych hold, right? So I feel like, why can't we do this with these folks too? Because somewhere in there, I feel this friend of mine is dying for help and needs the assistance, but can't, right? Because this person just can't make the decision on their own right now, because they're so, they're out of it right now. And so I think that if the person got the help that they need, I think the person would be in a better position, and there's family around that can assist, right? And so I think there's got to be a way in which we have to be able to take it. That's just one way, right? Right now, you can't do that. You're taking away their rights as an individual to make their own decision and their own choices. By law, we can't do that. But we have to figure out a way where we can help this. The other thing that you see is all the tents that are popping up everywhere, right? And I think if you see one or two, then nobody complains about it. But when it becomes 5, 6, 7, that's when everybody is just like, oh my gosh, there's an encampment there, right? I think, if you take a look at the city of Sacramento and the other cities, and then you take a look at the city of Elk Grove, everybody asks, well, why is that? Why is that the city of Elk Grove doesn't have as much, and we still continue to have the least number of homelessness? We do. We have the lowest number of homelessness in all across the region. And I think it's because our homeless navigator team, our police department, they check up on them, right? By law, they can't move them unless you have somewhere to go for them to go. But they check up on them maybe 3-4 times a week. And this community doesn't want you to bother them. They want you to just leave them alone. And so if you're checking up on them over and over and over again, and you're bothering them, they're going to move, because they don't want you coming into their area, right? But we also have this really cool program where we incentivize them if they keep their areas clean, right? So we give them gift cards to grocery stores if they keep their areas clean. And, we only complain when we see them trashing the place, right? But if they kept their area clean, I don't know that anybody would actually come up and complain about it, because it looks clean, right? I mean, it's not messy or anything. And I think we have compassion in us, right? And that we understand that if there's somebody that's homeless and they don't have a place to live, and they're not suffering with mental health or substance abuse or anything, they just fell through the cracks because of whatever reason had happened, right? That if they kept their areas clean and they didn't bother anybody, then I've seen people that it wasn't a big issue to them at all. And then you see folks that, I'm sure you all hear about this all the time, where folks lose their jobs. They lose their job and can pay their bills. The person who they were renting from sells the home, and they can't find a place to rent. They can't find anywhere else that they can afford. And if you have bad credit, good luck with that, right? Because nobody wants to rent a home to anybody with bad credit. So then you get people that end up living in their cars, So a lot of things happen that attribute to the homeless population. But we all have to do our part. We all have to do something. But I do feel like a lot more can be done with those that are suffering from mental health and drug addiction and drug abuse. And that, if anything, they have families that they can go to that can take care of them. And the families want to help them and they want to take care of them, but they can't. They can't. Yeah.
Got it. I think Lisa wanted to ask you something.
Okay, Stephanie, I'm gonna try to very hard not to be emotional because it hit home so much. And when I used to volunteer and everything like that, I would see that. And in our Asian culture too, especially because we both come from families of refugees, mental health is not talked about. You suck it up. You just do what you're supposed to do. And it doesn't come out until sometimes in your, midlife. And you see all this stuff and you see people so lost. So without trying to not get so emotional and everything like that, I want to ask you, how do we, those of us who are still stable enough, make that priority of making mental health a type priority instead of a taboo? How do we implement that mental health checkup is just as important as a physical checkup, considering that physical is absolutely affected by our mental and our emotional bodies of existence? How do we make that so we set that example? It's like, hey, I get a checkup every single year for my own mental health, not because I'm crazy, but because I want to prevent myself from being in that hole, that pit that sometimes from an outside person point of view coming in, you just want to tell that person, guys, the water's not that deep. It's really shallow. You just have to stand up. But how do we teach passion? How do we teach desire? How do we teach, just their purpose of wanting to be there for their kids, instead of using the drugs that they're addicted to numb themselves from that pain, from that isolation, from that loneliness or whatever depression that they're putting themselves into?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, Lisa, that's a great question. So, in my day job, as I mentioned, I run Asian Resources, the organization, and you are so spot on about our API community not wanting to talk about this, and we hide everything, and you don't want to talk about it, right? And so I think what we need to do is start talking about it and start talking about it at a young age with our children even, right? So I've shared this, but I'm a mother to a special needs kid. And that's been the hardest thing for me to share, because as Asians, you don't want to talk about that, right? Like, we want to be able to tell everybody that the one thing our parents like to do is brag about our kids, and grandparents love to brag about their grandkids, right? And so nobody wants to say that their kid is special needs, right? And isn't going to be able to thrive like all the other kids, and is a part of, a special program, and can't do the same things all these other kids can do. But we need to talk about it, right? We need to start talking about it to our kids. We need to start talking about it with our families. And we need to start to understand, the other thing that we do at Asian Resources is we have this program where we start addressing dementia and Alzheimer, right? And before, in the Asian community, that wasn't a thing. It was just, when they got old, you just assumed they're just getting old and they're going crazy, right? Like, we just thought, they're getting old, that's why they're getting that way. But that's not true. That's actually a thing. Like dementia, Alzheimer, I mean, that's an actual thing that people can come down with, right? And so I think that learning about it, educating our communities about what it is and what resources there are out there that's available. There are resources available for family members that are suffering with another family member that is going through things like Alzheimer and dementia, right? There's support groups that are available. But also there's opportunities to be able to assist the families that are going through this as well too. And how do we, we're now talking about, how do we give you a break, right? As a family member that is caring for somebody with mental health issues, because you need that as well too. You need to be able to take care of yourself in order for you to take care of somebody with a mental health issue. But I think it's just that it's talking about it. We need to talk about it more, and we need to be able to be open about it. And instead of hiding it, we hide everything. We want to make it seem like we're perfect. We want to make it seem like we're successful in our jobs and we're doing well, when in fact that's not necessarily always true. And it only makes us human if we, talk about our flaws and our mistakes and what we're struggling with, right? So, yeah.
Would you be able to provide us a list of resources?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So what I can do is give the website to my organization, and then we can connect you with all the resources. So it's www.asianresources.org. O-R-G.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. Stephanie, I want to ask you, since you are tackling the homelessness and everything, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Mm-hmm. I just feel like with all of the homeless communities that are being created, which is a wonderful thing, but at what point where I'm more of a teach people how to fish rather than give them a fish. So when you're building these homes and everything like that, what are the resources that are coming in to teach them how to garden, to teach them how to sew, to teach them how to build that community in that house, kind of like a habitat of humanity, and give them that purpose of, hey, what I do not just affects myself, but it affects the community. And hopefully we can grow that into an aspect of, now they have these trades, perhaps they can be also a part of that list of people that you're talking about earlier, where other people can employ. Because right now there is a huge need for laborers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then, that's where my workforce development hat comes on, and the work that I do in the community that's around wraparound services. There is that is in place on the county level. The county controls all of the social services program, right? And the idea behind those that when you talk about, I'm thinking, Lisa, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's about those that are going into like affordable housing, right? Those that are going to affordable housing, but also the idea of like, you probably heard like tiny homes or something that they're talking about putting around this county here. And you probably have read about there being a site off of Power Inn and Florin Road that they're talking about putting something up there to be able to have tiny homes available for those that are unhoused. So the way things work here is you can't tell somebody who has a tent that is set up to move unless you can tell them of a place they can go to, right? Otherwise, you can't tell them to move, right? You can't tell them they have to go elsewhere, right? So
what about shelters?
So there are shelters. There are lots of shelters that are around. There's just not enough shelters for everybody. There's not enough beds, right, for everybody. So you've got a shelter that's, I believe, in the Meadowview area, and that's meant to be for women and kids. And I think they're full already too. There's just not enough shelters for those that are unhoused. And so what we're all trying to do, and we're all trying to address this regionally, right? So even in the city of Elk Grove, we're thinking, how do we do this? What do we do? Of course, nobody wants this in their backyard. Nobody wants this near their home. Nobody wants this near where they live, right? But we have to do something. We all have to do something. Every city is trying to figure out, how do we address this homelessness issue? And if you want to get rid of all the encampments, if you want to get rid of all the tents that are around everywhere, we have to find places where we can put them in. And right now there's just not enough, and nobody wants to have them there. So imagine, I talked about, you have a voice, you as a community, and if there's a site that we are going to designate in the city of Elk Grove as a homeless shelter, tiny homes encampment or whatnot, we have to publicize that. And when we publicize that, the word gets around and everybody comes in, and they don't want it there. They don't want it there. And they have ideas to have it on the east side or the west side or the north side. I mean, it doesn't matter where you put it. The community will come out and they will say that they don't want it here because of X, Y, and Z. And if we don't have it somewhere, what you have is them being scattered all around the entire city is what you get. And you can't stop them because there's nowhere for them to go to, right? You can't have them going anywhere else. And so Lisa asked about what are we doing to make sure they have, so those that are employable, those that can work, there are wraparound services that are available for them. There are job centers, there are case managers, there are folks that are available to be able to assist them and get them into a place where they can work, right? The problem is, while they may be at work, it's not going to be enough for them to be able to pay for their living, conditions, right? I mean, it's probably, even if I get them a place to work and I sign them up on CalFresh and I give them, health insurance, where are they going to be able to find a place? Would you be able to rent? Do you have a house that you can rent for somebody who was, just homeless, and apartment complexes, they get taken up real quick. Just she was talking about how quick homes go for sale. I mean, apartment complexes, good luck finding, a place there, right? And
So that brings me to the next thing I wanted to address. Affordable housing.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be the goal, the ultimate goal, to provide enough affordable housing to where inventory wouldn't be an issue anymore? How would that work?
So affordable housing is great, right? And we want homes to be affordable. I think the problem also lies that the Bay Area people, they have enough cash and they have enough money to be able to, win, right? I can't compete against anybody in the Bay Area with all their money to be able to come in and pay. And that's what I'm hearing is a lot of people are putting in offers and it's all cash. Not very many of us have that, so you get priced out automatically, right? And so we're discussing things like if we're going to do an affordable housing units, right, complex, maybe make it so that, what folks think though is when they hear affordable housing, they think of like poor people. They think it's going to be a unit where there's going to be drugs that are going to be done, out of that area or whatnot. But there are a lot of folks that qualify. You've got teachers that qualify. You have folks that work in the hospitals, right? Think about the custodians, think about, the folks that work in food service at the hospitals. Think about those folks, right? They're not, when you think about hospitals, they're not all doctors and nurses and surgeons. They qualify as well too. And so I want to get people out of that mindset of like, when they see an affordable housing complex come up, they think it's going to be an area where a bunch of drug dealers are going to be. They think it's going to be a bunch of gangbangers or whatnot. That's not necessarily the case. I came from an affordable housing complex, and my family wasn't that way. We just couldn't afford to buy a home. And eventually we got there, right? But there are a lot of people that just are priced out and they just can't afford a home. And we're trying to get to that point, right? Right now we have some sites that are going up that's been approved through council already that's going to go up, but it's not enough, right? It's not enough for us to be able to house everybody. And so we just have to find a way, and you're all professionals, you all do this and you see it more than I do, right? As soon as a new development comes up, I'm sure it's gone right away. And people want to move from, an apartment to a 3-bedroom house to you have another kid or two, you want to move to a 5-bedroom house, but they're gone right away. And, are they going to people locally here? Are they going to Bay Area people? So I can't control that. You guys control that. So maybe if all the realtors in the city of Elk Grove got together and say, we only want to represent Elk Grove residents, right? So you're the one that's bringing them in. You guys are the one that are bringing these folks in, and they're pricing out and they're winning out of all of us locally here, right? And,
that's crazy how you said that, because we are kind of the gatekeepers, right? To Bay Area people coming into this, which now that I'm thinking about it, man, it sucks now because now we are the gatekeepers. Oh my God, Lisa. We're the gatekeepers. So now it's kind of like I have to turn away business now. This is probably a referral from a past client or family or friend, but you're from the Bay Area. I'm not going to work with you because I want my locals to get the home first. That's it becomes a argument of ethics now, right?
I know.
So can I tag into that, guys? Because I'm from the Bay Area. I'm from the Bay Area. I'm going to tell you this. It's because it is so unaffordable. My very similar neighborhood, my sister-in-law lives in a very similar neighborhood, and her home right now is worth about $3 million. Okay. So can you imagine her kids being able to buy in that neighborhood? It's the same trickle effect. It's not that they're doing it to be rich. It's because they're doing it so that they can build something for their kids too. And unfortunately, that just happens to trickle in. Now, what I'm asking for is, since we can't stop that, and if I say we stop Bay Area people, I'm kind of going to be a hypocrite, because I am, that's me. So how do we propose something? If we wanted to propose something like this, Stephanie, how do we say, hey, can we make an incentive for all those people that are investors, maybe? Can we propose a tax break? Hey, if you sell it to a low income family or a medium income family, can we get a tax break so that we can create more of an inventory that way? Because it's not just the Bay Area people buying, it's that people aren't willing to sell because they have no idea where to go, number one. And number two, for the investors, they're getting capital gain taxes and everything like that. So if they already bought a while ago and they're banking and cash flowing, they're not going to want to release that. Can we provide them some sort of an incentive? And if there is, what can we do as a public to incentivize that?
Yeah. So yeah, we can definitely incentivize, developers to do that. But who controls the end user, the buyer, right? So I would look at you and Chia, and how do I know? I'm going to say I believe you. If you know somebody that is, truly low income, you would do their loan. Chia would get them, in the home. But do you think everybody would be as honest as you, right? Like, who controls that? Who would be the one to be able to vet that, right? That's real difficult to do. We do that with the affordable housing, units already, and they have to bring in their bank statements before they can occupy the space and rent, right? The apartment complex. And they're supposed to recheck them every single year. In order for you to qualify to be in this affordable housing space, they have to recheck their statements, their income every year. But I can tell you, they're supposed to, right? Whether they do it or not, I can't control that. The city can't control that. We incentivize them for coming into our city and being able to offer this and build this. But who would be the one to, is there somebody, at the top that there just isn't. Like, the city can't control that. The city we're not in the home selling business to be able to vet these folks. And I think if a developer said they would only work with certain individuals, I don't think they're allowed to do that. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so, but I'm not in the industry. So that.
Lisa, I'm getting your chat, and maybe you could ask it, because I'm not quite getting it either.
Oh, okay. So you know how there are down payment assistance programs that are helping the low to medium income folks. And again, it'd be the same to me. I would think that it would be the same vetting process as to see what their total income is, what their total expenses is. I do that extra, thing with my clients where I actually do a monthly savings budget and everything like that. And they fall into this category, and perhaps they have to go into a certification, just like the first-time home buyers who are in these programs, who have to take a first-time home buying course. Would that be some way that we could start something like that? And again, I'm just looking for ways to create that desire for people to want to release their investment properties so that more people can afford to buy those, and they'd have the incentive to actually sell it to that community.
Yeah. No, I hear what you're saying, and I understand. I think somebody needs to come up with the process and put it in place, and then say, I think, this is the way to do it. This is how we can do it. And we can certainly, I think it's doable. I do. I just worry about, there's going to be other folks from other areas that would qualify and come in and say that they qualify, right? It's about, if we're saying local, right, then I think you all, right, all the realtors and lenders that are in the city, let's just use the city of Elk Grove, should say that you would only work with residents in Elk Grove that are renting, and you're going to get them into buying a home in the city of Elk Grove. But you can't do that, right? Then you can't pick and choose people, and you can't say you're not going to take clients. Maybe you will, but there's always going to be a few that says, well, you know what? Why would I do that? Look, there's a whole market of people that are going to want to buy here, right? And so, and there's no way we can, as a city, say we can only sell these to Elk Grove residents. We can only, give this to folks in the city of Elk Grove. I mean, I've tried that. I've tried looking at, we're putting an affordable housing complex in place. Can we looked at things like teachers, right? Teachers only. Can we make it teachers only? Can we make it vets, right? Veterans, right? Like that's always a big one. And so that we can do. But to say that they are Elk Grove residents only, I don't, we can't do that, because everybody should be able to buy in the city of Elk Grove if they want to, and if they can afford it, right? So, but I see where you're going, Lisa, and I like it. And I think if we just teased it out a little bit, I think you're onto something that might work. I really do think you're onto something. And I think you're right. I mean, I think people need to be able to, again, that cycle of like getting an apartment, renting a house, then buying a house, right? But that's not happening anymore. That's definitely not happening. And how do we get back into that again? It's kind of like, when you look at young people and they start their first job, it's always, they start out like flipping burgers or working in fast food industry. And then you move your way up to the next one. Well, people now, their first job, they want to be a manager right away. They want to run a business. They want to, what happened to work? I worked at Togo's doing sandwiches as my first job, right? And then worked my way up from there. But our young people, they don't want to do that anymore. They want to graduate and they just want to be the boss, right? They want to be the boss. So we're losing the steps that we all took. And maybe that's just the way things are now. That's how, changes happen. And with, this internets and everything online now and all the social media stuff, people are learning things a lot faster, and they're able to now go to school online, right? Before there was no such thing for me. But now you can do online studies. There's a fast track, there's a slow track. I mean, there's all kinds of options now. And then, people need to be able to afford it. And so we go back to, it goes back to what type of jobs they're in. And, I always say, if you have somebody that works for you, and let's say they're at a fast food place and they've been there for 20 years and you're the owner, well, shame on you for keeping them there for 20 years flipping burgers. Like, you as a leader should be helping them get out of there and moving to something else, right? Like, I always tell my assistants, I don't want you here for more than X amount of years. I want you to move up into something else, because when you're successful, that means I was, a good leader in getting you there, right? I talked about how I was the first API woman to be elected in the city of Elk Grove, and I was the only, right? The first and the only. And my thing is, if I'm the first and the only, I'm going to make sure that I'm not the last, right? And so for me, it's about getting others to be able to jump in this role as well too, and lead. It's about making sure that we have others like us that are going to be in this role, because we represent a whole community of folks that folks may not be able to relate to.
Let me kind of go back to the homelessness issue. So are other states like having their homeless people come to California because we're California, we just do that for everyone?
I've heard about that. I've heard people say that other states are sending them to California because we have everything here for them. And I will say that I'm not saying that's not true. I'm sure that there are some people that have come here from other cities, maybe, and maybe other states. I don't know, but I do know that a good chunk of them are people that are from our very own, our very own city. So in the city of Elk Grove, we have, I don't know, anywhere between 50 to 75 homelessness folks that are in and around the city of Elk Grove, right? And I can tell you that all of them have a connection to the city of Elk Grove. They have a family member, they were born in Elk Grove, or someone, they feel comfortable in the city of Elk Grove, and that's why they stay there. And I've heard the same for the city of Sacramento. They have a connection in the city of Sacramento. They know the area, and so they stay there. I have heard of other folks that have come to our city from other areas because they were told that you get everything here. Why stay where you're at if they're not doing anything? So come here. I do try to tell people, when you see panhandlers, don't give them money. You're not helping the cause at all by giving them, money. You'll see people at the end of the road and they're asking for money. Send them to the local food bank if they need food, right? Especially if they are looking like they're, in a position where they can actually do something, where there's resources and services for them to get help. But if you keep giving them food, keep giving them money, then they're just going to sit at that corner the entire time, and they're not going to help. They're not helping themselves. Back to Lisa's thing, like we keep giving handouts. We need to let them know, hey, go over there. The food bank is right over there. They're going to give you food, because for the most part, what they're doing is holding a sign and saying they are hungry, right? They need money because they're hungry. Well, we've got a food bank in town. We've got a food bank in Elk Grove. We've got a food bank in Sacramento. We've got local churches that are, giving food out, and some of them are even giving them an opportunity to shower. And so, I think we need to be able to guide them to those areas. We have a really good homeless navigator team here in the city of Elk Grove that really checks up on a lot of our unhoused community, just to make sure they're doing okay. We check up on them, get them what they need. And, it's just good to have that connection with them.
Definitely.
So-
Thank you for
Oh,
sharing
go ahead.
all these resources with us and everything. I wanted to ask you too, so that I didn't even know a lot of these resources existed where you're talking about. Is there any way that we can connect later on so that I can get that checklist and perhaps send it to all of our homeowners as well, just to say, hey, if you see that, be a part of the solution with us?
Yes, absolutely. I could send you a list of resources that are available. It's just good to get it out to folks. And, if you're a realtor or you have clientele, you never know. Some of your clients may be in need of some of this stuff. Just resources like getting tested, getting a PCR test. I've heard you have to pay $300 to get the test. You can go to a community center that is paid through the county to do this, and it's free, absolutely free, right? And so there are places that are there for folks to be able to utilize. There's just a lot of resources that are out there that you can give to your clients. I mean, and you don't have to be low income to use this service. The service is for everybody. It really is. But yes, Lisa, I can get you those so you guys can share with everybody.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So going back to what I was talking about regarding homelessness coming from other states, if that becomes an issue to where it's too big, can it become a federal issue?
That's a federal issue. That's like even much bigger. That's where they got to figure that out. That's where our president, has to figure that issue out. And what they're doing is they're getting, funding and resources out to each state so that each state can take care of the homeless population. And each state decides on how they want to tackle this, right? And how they want to solve this and what they want to do. Again, I go back to people, will go to where they have family and where they have resources, right? And so very seldom do you have a homeless person from another state that's willing to come all the way here to California, not having any resources, right? Not having any family support or anything like that in place. And if they have a mental health disorder, I wonder how they went all the way from New York to California. How did you get here, right? Or whatnot. And so
Drop-offs.
you
You never know.
Yeah. But every state has funding to be able to address this. Every state is dealing with this. Everybody is dealing with this issue all across.
Got it. Okay. Well, did you have anything else you want to ask, Lisa?
I have a ton of things that I want to ask, but you know what? I'm going to be respectful of Stephanie's time. Maybe for another time, if we have a chance to get you back as well, Stephanie. It's just so wonderful to see somebody that's not just Asian American, but also so relatable and has such a compassionate heart. And we definitely need that. My friend who vouched for you, told me how you were like that, and you definitely didn't disappoint. So thank you so much for educating us today.
Absolutely.
We will definitely have you back again really want to be respectful of your hour that you gave us, because I know that you're at your campaign office right now too. That's why there's all that background noise. So we're getting close to that hour, and I told you it was gonna go by fast.
Yeah, it was. I know. And I
So,
appreciate you both giving me this opportunity. And I'd love to come back to give an update as often as you want. If you want to, every time we have a council meeting, which is the second and fourth Wednesdays of the month, I could come in and give a recap about what happened, what we voted on, what we decided on, or just any topic that you think might be a really good hot topic. I'd be more than happy to come back and go over it in details. And if you want, I could bring another council member with me as well too. I can't bring more than two. It can only be two people at a time, right? But it would just be good. And then, I'd be more than happy to bring the chief of police or the fire chief to come in so he can answer some of these questions that you guys may have. Yeah, I could definitely get you some other folks to come in and
that'd be
answer.
great. Maybe the
Yeah.
chief of police. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I could make that happen. Sure. I had him come with me to very many, community sessions and talking points. And he can talk about safety. He can talk about a lot of the things that probably your realtors, your lenders deal with, code enforcement stuff as well too. When can you call them? What can't you do? We got a lot of people. I'm sure you deal with this too, where a lot of folks ask if they can paint their house this color or whatnot, or what the rule is behind, grass. And here in Elk Grove, we're very fortunate. Our community has their eyes and ears open all the time. And I get the phone calls and the email all the time. My neighbor is letting his grass grow over 12 inches. Call it in. I got to send code enforcement out there. But you know what? That's what keeps our city clean, right? That's what keeps our city looking the way it does, because we have a lot of people that really care, and they'll call it in. Whereas, I grew up in South Sacramento off of Stockton Boulevard in Little Saigon, and you can have a car parked there for 6 months and nobody cares. But here, they'll call it in. In Elk Grove, they will call it in.
No, that'd be great. Yeah, having that officer come in, that sheriff, that'd be so cool, actually. So
Yeah.
maybe we need to hook up again or find out when he's available, and that way we can let all the viewers know to prepare for that. That'd be great.
We can
But
do that.
yeah, but we are over that hour, and I promised I was gonna let you go, so we're gonna let you go and do your thing, okay? Did you also wanted to share regarding the voting and all that too, the date and
Yeah.
before you
So,
go?
yep. So ballots are dropping soon. You should, if you're a registered voter, you should be getting your ballot within the next couple of days. If you're not a registered voter, you can still register up until May 23rd. And the district covers the entire city of Elk Grove, Meadowview, Pocket, Greenhaven, and South Sacramento, the little Saigon area. And so if you live in those districts, you're able to vote for in this election in District 10, Assembly District 10. And I'd be honored to have your support and your vote. I'd be the very first Asian American woman to lead us here at the state level as a legislator, very first. And
That's awesome.
we haven't had a woman in the last 20 years. So it'd be really cool to be in that position and to advocate for our communities here. And
You
the
guys heard
date
it.
is June 7th. June 7th is the actual vote date, but you can turn in your ballot anytime before then.
Perfect. Well, we're gonna let you go, Stephanie. Thank you so much again for sharing all of that. We're definitely gonna have you back, and we'll stay in touch with you.
Sounds good. Thank you, Chia. Thank you, Lisa.
All
Thank
right, bye
you.
now. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.